Hi, everybody. I am very honored to have former Senator Laura Reinbold here today. Thank you for being with us. Laura, could you tell us a little bit about
Absolutely.
your background in politics in terms of what you did and what got you into politics in the first place?
Well, it's a long history, but I will make it very short. Bottom line is my parents were deeply involved and they took me to like conventions back in 72. John Wayne was there. And I just remember my parents always saying there is no excuse not to be involved. So I was involved pretty much my whole life in regards to politics, helping U.S. Senator Stevens get elected. And eventually, I decided to create my own path in politics and got involved on a local level, like the homeowners association, and then a mom helping out with team sports. And then it got bigger and bigger, and I basically started building trails, like the historic Iditarod Trail, trying to get trails around my community. Then got on inaugural committees and got deeply involved. By at one point in 2010, I think I was on 8 boards and committees, and I decided I might as well just run for office, and I did, and it was a great decision.
Wonderful. Well, I know you also got out of politics. So what got you out of politics?
Well, I was pretty bold, and I made only one promise to myself when I got into politics. I said, I'm not going to change my core belief system, and I'm going to fight the deep state and resist being transformed because I'd supported so many candidates in my life, and they were great as candidates, but then they went down to Juneau or Washington, D.C., and they changed. So I said, I'm going to stay true to my core values. So, bottom line is, I fought the budgets and I voted 5 times no on in the 10 years I served in the legislature. It's a big deal. To vote no on a budget means you're going to lose your chairmanship, means you're going to lose your staff, your office, etc. But I knew that the budgets were too big. So I am pretty excited about what Trump and Elon Musk want to do to reduce the budgets because they're very unsustainable and it's a big national security issue. Regulatory reform, it was something, that I was really deeply involved in, and I got a major regulatory reform bill through. So there's a lot of successes, and we may get to some of them. But why I ended up getting out is because I stood up to the mandates. I stood up to the COVID mandates very aggressively, and the governor took me on hard. And I'm actually before the Alaska Supreme Court with a letter he sent out, and basically I blocked somebody on Facebook and they're claiming that it was an ethics violation. So they weaponized the ethics committee, ended up in a huge lawsuit there, and now it's before the Supreme Court. I also got sued for blocking somebody on Facebook, and that's been almost 4 years now. It's cost me well over $200,000. But people that stand up to the deep state, you get targeted. And then I got banned on Alaska Airlines, even though I was wearing a mask. But the bottom line is that when you stand up to this movement, they try to cancel you. So I decided to try to hold them accountable. So right now I have a couple of lawsuits and I'm learning a lot in regards to that. So I'm still involved in politics, but more in the judicial branch right now.
Absolutely. Well, I want to applaud your bravery. We met during COVID, and I learned a lot about what you were doing through a mutual friend, and I think it's
Mhm.
wonderful. Going back to fighting the deep state, why do you think it is so difficult for so many elected leaders to take on the deep state in the ways that you have?
Mhm. Well, usually there's like 3 major. I can speak for Alaska in particular. The oil industry is really powerful up here. The natives are really powerful, and the unions are really powerful up here in Alaska. So when I was more of a people have the right to choose whether they want to be part of a union or not, especially public union. So the unions were pretty aggressive. A matter of fact, the person who sued me is a Teamster. So the unions have a huge play, and a lot of Republicans, because they don't want to have to go door knocking and do the hard work like I had to do. I had 555 signs up my first election. So I worked really, really hard door knocking. If you want an easy road, just kind of bow to the unions and you get all the union help and you get their endorsement. I
Mhm.
didn't do that. I resisted that. But a lot of Republicans in particular would rather just go the easy route. And it's easy just to capitulate. I chose not to do that. And so I had a rougher ride.
What would you say are some of the successes that you're most proud of in your political role?
Well, to me, one of the most important things, or the most important thing, is the minds of our youth.
Mm.
Taking care of children and parental rights. And that's what pretty much for the first 4 years that I was elected was protecting parental rights, trying to get rid of the Common Core. I even later tried to get rid of critical race theory. Um, and also states' rights. So I got a massive regulatory reform bill through in the state of Alaska. I also got a stopping using state funding to put forth the Common Core standards, which are extremely controversial. And that's how things like critical race theory have snuck into our education system. Um, More recently, exposing the big budgets was just amazing. Since 2015, I was exposing just the massive deficits in Alaska and basically overspending. And then regarding COVID, I probably am most proud of that fight because I got a massive bill passed where you could not, if you chose to take the vaccine, that was your choice. And if you chose not to, that was your choice. But nobody could discriminate on a school level, municipal level, state level for any reason, nor could they even ask you what your vaccine status was. So anyway, that was a huge success. And then one more huge success was we had a soft on crime bill passed in Alaska, and for 3.5 years I fought it. And successfully we got that overturned.
We're going back to critical race theory for just a moment. For those that don't know, why were you so opposed to it?
Well, I had substitute taught. And I was watching what was going on in the classrooms and some of the books and things that they're reading. So I was quite tuned in to what was going on in the education system. And I studied critical race theory, and it was basically pinning one race against another. Everything that we tried to get rid of for 40 years, any prejudice or anything like that. And then this brought it right back front and center. And it was causing tremendous division in this classroom.
Mhm. Going back to politics in general, we just came off a very momentous election with Trump.
Mhm.
What message do you think his victory, the resounding victory, really sends to the rest of the nation? What are the implications of this election?
Well, first of all, I have a similar situation where Trump got blocked. He blocked somebody for being abusive, basically on Facebook or Twitter, and I got the same similar, issue. And so we were basically upholding the CDA, the Communication Decency Act. When people become abusive, they need to be toned down a little, and it's kind of like walking away from a conversation when things get too tight. Well, the bottom line is Trump ended up that lawsuit ended up being let go of. Basically it turned into Biden versus Knight. Well, what's exposed all of this is the hypocrisy, because censorship is so massive with the federal government, with Facebook, even with Twitter, with everything. And to me, just exposing the hypocrisy of the dramatic amounts of true censorship that happen with big tech and the federal government, I think there's going to be a dramatic increase in free speech and a dramatic reduction of censorship. And I think that is huge. Just watching people like Zuckerberg kiss up to Trump and all these people, to me, that's pretty exciting. So I think there's going to be a lot more transparency of data. And I think even in the healthcare industry, like they were suppressing the anti-vaxxer or the people that were exposing the concerns with the vaccine, I think all that's going to go away. And I think that's pretty exciting.
I agree with you about that. I was talking to some friends recently who were more on the left, and even they were feeling more confident about the economy due to this election. What is your
Mhm.
sense about how the American economy and the world economy will fare under a Trump presidency?
Well, I actually think we're going to be moving in the good direction. First, if we reduce the budget, because that's what's causing the inflation, and that's a huge deal. Also, of course, I think resource development is critical. I mean, everybody needs energy. My power was out 9 hours yesterday, and so you end up recognizing how valuable and important, gas is, and we're having shortages in Alaska. So getting offshore drilling going and getting energy, I think that's critical. It helps businesses. Also, border control. You got to be safe in your neighborhoods. You got to be safe in your schools. And he's going to deport a lot of illegal aliens and allow the legal ones to stay. I think that's critical. So, public safety, defense, and I think are absolutely critical. And then getting our economy going. Energy fuels the economy.
Sure. I mean, thinking back about the cultural zeitgeist, we were talking about critical race theory, and part of
Mhm,
this is wokeness is the term that they use for it.
mhm.
What is your sense about the future of wokeness after this election?
I am extremely happy that so many people were awake and podcasts like you, books. People were taking bold stands against, the boys and girls sports. And I think it was the parents' involvement. I think it was podcasts, books. And I'm really, really excited that it looks like that agenda is going down. To see people like McDonald's abandoning it, it's pretty exciting. Very upset with Costco. They're doubling down on it. What a stupid move.
Are they?
Their board of directors doubling down on diversity, equity, and inclusion, even after all Trump stuff. So I think Costco needs a rude awakening right now regarding those types of policies that are really can be very harmful. So bottom line is, I think the woke agenda, people have woken up to it, and the people that have been awake, I think that the fundamental this nation was founded on freedom, liberty, our constitutional rights, Bill of Rights, those things are going to come back front and center. And that's another bill I'd love to talk about. If you're interested, because on agenda so Trump's agenda is Agenda 47, and there's a whole bunch of things that he wants to do that competes basically with the Agenda 2030. But if you're interested, talking about the Bill of Rights, I tried to get a very interesting, simple bill through, and I'm happy to talk about what happened there.
Please.
So bottom line is the Bill of Rights, the Constitution, our country was founded on fighting tyranny. So, to me, it's really, really important to recognize it and fight it. So I tried to get a very simple bill through where any elected official, whether you're a judge, whether you are a legislator, anybody who is constitutionally required to take an oath to the Constitution, they have to read the Constitution first. You have to read the United States Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and you have to read the Declaration of Independence, because those documents, you can't separate them. One is the charter, and one is, basically how you fulfill that charter. And I got 5 committees of referral, 5. Usually that kind of simple little bill, just telling people they need to read the Constitution before they take an oath to it, should just go right through. Well, we had a president of the Senate, President Peter McChickey. He gave it 5 committee referrals. If you get 5 committee referrals, pretty much the bill's going to die. And basically, I got it through all the way to rules, and then they killed it. So, it's just the simplest things you try to do that are so basic and elementary, but the deep state is very real.
Yeah, well, what you're talking about there is super important. In fact, with my children, their ages 6 and 9, you met them. Every morning, I have them. They're learning the Constitution, and I have them practicing, and they're learning these things with me because I think it's super important. In fact, the whole reason for this Substack and podcast is consciousness and waking up to what's going on. And if you don't know those things, and yet you're expected to be a public servant, if you haven't read the Constitution, I mean, what does that say for your character? What does it say for your knowledge about how this nation runs? So I applaud what you're doing.
Well, I applaud what you're doing, because that's, when you ask what's the most important thing, in the minds of our youth, people taking time to spend with their children is absolutely critical. And even making sure that they're educated, fundamentally with the founding principles is absolutely critical. And so thank you for what you're doing as well.
Oh, well, thank you very much. I'd like to go back to Elon Musk because you mentioned him earlier with, of course, his new office of DOGE, I think is what it is, right? The Department of Government Expenditures, maybe is that what it is?
Yeah, Department of Government Efficiency.
Okay, efficiency. Okay. So I have my own private concerns about Elon Musk that I've raised on my Substack before. And, I was not blind to the fact that even in Trump's acceptance speech, Elon Musk was front and center. Do you harbor any concerns about Elon Musk?
Yes, I actually do. I'm concerned about transhumanism. So, and I know it's far out, way out. I think he has some great ideas, and I appreciate his philanthropy, especially with the California people that are suffering. And we really want our hearts to go out to those people with California. They're being devastated in so many ways it's unimaginable. I'm super thankful that he is providing Starlink, and he also did that for people in North Carolina. Some of his things are brilliant, and I used to be on the aerospace board. I am in complete admiration of some of the things he's doing in space. But there are concerns that I have, in regards to AI. I mean, I love your book because you are talking about the AI revolution and owning the AI revolution. So people like me that were shying away from it, you've actually empowered me and helped me just really become educated in it. But he's got a lot of financial incentives to do certain things, and I think sometimes there can be real conflicts of interest. So I think that needs to be monitored.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, just looking at one of the ambitions he's after, which is Neuralink,
Hmm.
is deeply concerning. And
Hmm.
I think with all these things, it begins with something small and gradual, and we take
Hmm.
our eye off the ball. So in this case, Neuralink had a big announcement last year, but we're not talking about it very much. And so
Hmm.
while our attention is going elsewhere, he is progressing with this, and I don't think it's inconceivable that in 5 or 10 years' time, that for parents who want to do best by their children, which we just talked about a moment ago, the way to compete is to upload your consciousness, or not, sorry, to enhance your consciousness, excuse me, through these other medical interventions, which I'm deeply concerned about. Um,
Hmm.
with that said, I think it's a good segue into talking about technological tyranny. You and I both spoke at the Alaska convention, I think it was 2 years ago, and we were talking, at least some of the subject matter was about technological tyranny in terms of AI, central bank digital currencies, financial deplatforming. With your vantage point when it comes to politics, especially in Alaska, do you think that a Trump presidency bodes well for fighting technological tyranny, or does that bring greater concern?
Well, I wish I could say, I think everything's going to be okay, and he's a freedom lover and a constitutional rights guy and all that. However, I'm seeing different by some of his appointees. Um, the the real ID, I don't see any resistance there, and that's of deep concern. I voted no on a state level because they try to bring these things on a global level, then a federal level, and then bring it down locally. And I'm really concerned about that because if AI takes over a whole bunch, and there's um, digital currency, and basically people can turn the switch, on a different type of social score. Maybe it's not the transgender, but maybe it's a different type of social score, like how you integrate into AI. Who knows what that social score is going to look like? It yields a lot of power. And then if they end up taking over legacy media, if they take over social media, they have government involvement, put their people there. I mean, it's a different type of tyranny. So I think that I'm a huge believer in massive separation of powers. That the legislature writes all policy. I'm not a huge fan of anybody else. I'm not a fan of big case law. Case law is opinion, in my opinion, and it goes down, the tier. The legislature writes policy, but being in court for the last 4 years, I'm understanding that these judicial people want to write case law. It's not. It's opinions. It's opinions from judges. Same thing with executive orders. And with Biden having so many executive orders, it's concerning of me. I really believe that we need to repeal a lot of them, which thank goodness Trump is going to do, but also we need the legislatures to be responsible for writing policy. The checks and balances are critical, but also keeping clear separation. That's how America has survived the last 250 years, by separation of powers.
Absolutely. Going back to COVID for just a moment, now that we look back, back to 2020, do you think, of course, that's a horrible tragedy, but do you think that people have sufficiently woken up by what occurred, and are you hopeful for the future?
Yeah, that's a great question. And what I'm seeing is more than half have woken up, more than half. So I think a lot of people are really, really aware of probably everybody's aware of the dangers of what tyranny can do. So
Mhm.
yes, I believe that people have woken up dramatically, but people that are actually willing to engage and stop it and not just roll over and become sheeple and not resist, I think it's roughly 50-50 still. So I still think we have a major empowerment, education, equipping people, and teaching people about their constitutional rights. That's why I started Constitutional Freedom Fighters. The first week of April 2020, I started Constitutional Freedom Fighters in Alaska because I wanted people to understand how powerful they were. And empowering the people is actually the key to success.
So, what about your own constitution, your own makeup, allows you to think this way? Because not everyone feels like you. Well, not everyone does, and is as brave as you, and is willing to fight for those things. What makes you different?
Well, I think faith for sure. I read the Founders Bible. I'm a wall builders. Wall builders is David Barton, and I try to go see him. I think for 10 years in a row, I went down to understand the history of America, looking at the original documents and reading in a Bible called the Founders Bible, and it talks. It's not just biblical, it brings the Bible to life. It brings our founding fathers to life. It enhances your knowledge more than any other book I've ever read, and it's amazing. But it helps me understand what they went through, so we have what we have. And I do believe we're all going to be accountable in the end as well. Um, of did we stand up and defend our rights, our liberty, or did we roll over? What are we leaving? We're even being judged by our own children. What legacy are we leaving for our children and our grandchildren? So I just think it's really, really important to try to make the world better than where you found it. And we had a pretty good life, in regards to our freedoms, and I just really want future generations to be able to enjoy what we've had.
Mhm. Of course, no one has a crystal ball, but if you had to predict what the Trump presidency will look like, wins and losses, short term and long term, what are your thoughts?
Well, the first thing, I think there's going to be a lot of resistance and chaos trying to deport these illegal aliens. They're not going to just go, willingly. I think there's going to be resistance, and I think people need to be prepared for that and very aware that there's going to be some conflicts, I believe. Also, in regards to reducing the big size of the federal government, a lot of people aren't necessarily going to want to go back and work out of the office. There's going to be resistance. There's going to be pushback, and I think people need to brace themselves for that. But I also believe that there's going to be, in the end, I think resource development and energy security. Groceries are so out of control expensive. It's ridiculous right now. Just, I truly believe that there's going to be more America First initiatives, and I hope that there's manufacturing brought back to America. And I really think with what Trump is doing, that there's some super amazing opportunities for our economy.
Um, Changing gears a little bit, but going back to young people for just a moment, how can we
Mhm.
get more young people, especially boys, to care about what's going on politically and culturally?
Well, I'm going to go back to a question you asked a few minutes ago. That COVID shot really woke people up.
Mhm.
And there's a lot of people that were forced to take it, to go to college, to be in the dorms in Alaska, to keep your healthcare position, et cetera. And there's been a lot of harm done. And that's something that I've really stuck with. That's why we keep having exposed COVID tyranny. Now it's called Alaskans for Personal Freedom. We're still exposing that. And what we're seeing is a lot of a lot more youth are libertarian now, and I see them engaging. But I think understanding how much they love their freedom has really woken them up. And I think that's why a lot of the youth ended up voting for Trump after what Biden was doing with censorship and mandates and all that. So I do think they're woke. But I think what you're doing, writing books, podcasts, us going and having symposiums, not being afraid to talk about the tough, and even standing up to people that I was constantly in trouble because I was standing up to people with an R, a Republican. Doesn't matter to me whether you have a Democrat jersey on or a Republican jersey. It matters what's in your heart and what your integrity is. And so to me, I was willing to work with people and that's why I got the Democrats. The Democrats voted for my bill, almost every single one of them, anti-discrimination based on the decision you made, whether to take the vaccine or not.
If you were going to give advice to a young person that wants to get into politics and run for office like you did, what would you suggest?
Mhm. I would say study the founding fathers, why America has been so great because of them fighting tyranny and what they were willing to do. It's going to be a sacrifice. And then what kind of legacy do you want to leave, in the future? But I think studying the Constitution is critical. Studying the state constitution is critical. And then embracing that and then empowering people. What I learned going door to door, people want to know, what are you going to do for them? So just understand that people love their freedom, and just being able to defend that, I think is absolutely, and parental rights is critical. Just know how important it is for people to have rights, and that you have them. You just need to embrace them and defend them, and don't let people take them from you.
Absolutely. Final question. What makes you hopeful for the future?
Many things. I am seeing a lot of people um, that are paying attention to what's going on in the world, and they want to make a difference, and they want to be on the right side of this because there is an undercurrent. And I'm seeing a real an incredible awakening, basically from youth all the way up, that really people really understand that there is a conflict going on, and that people want to be on the right side of it. And so people having courage, like you and like Dr. Ryan Cole, Peter McCullough, um, Dr. Jensen, I mean, all these people that were willing, Dr. Noss, Kennedy, I love Kennedy, Robert Kennedy, him standing up in the face, even though he's going to get resistance. He did his homework, he had courage, he stood up, and his heart is pure. He really wants the best for the children, the adults, and the world in regards to food safety and big pharma. And just knowing that there's going to be more transparent information, and people are really going to get to see the difference in what's out there, and making decisions. I think things are going to go in a much better place, and we're going to end up in a much better place in 4 years.
I agree with you. Final thing. So if people want to follow your work or follow you in general, how can they do so?
Well, right now, I'm a little bit limited on social media, but I do still have a Facebook account right now. It's just Lora Reinbold, my name. And then I do have an X account. It's pretty new account there, but it's called Lora for Alaska. And bottom line there is I'm just trying to expose at a high level what's going on. But I will have some big podcasts in the future. I will be getting back engaged in policy, so I can actually I'll be letting you know on opportunities in the future.
Wonderful. Well, I want to say just thank you again for your own courage and for your brave heart. So thank you for all that you're doing, Laura. It's been an honor to talk to you.
Thank you very much, and really appreciate everything you're doing and the amazing books that you have written behind you. They are fascinating, and you are providing hope for the future.
Thank you so much.